In recent years, Israel and Egypt have accused Salafi jihadi groups from Gaza of being behind attacks carried out along the Sinai border between the two countries through a collaboration between Gaza-based militants and Salafi operatives in Sinai. Israel has also accused these groups of firing rockets from Gaza against Israeli targets, which led Hamas, the governing authority of Gaza, to crack down on these groups. The Islamic movement, which was democratically elected in January 2006, has been in control of the impoverished coastal territory since mid-2007. It was able to stay in control and remove other emerging groups that tried to destabilize Hamas-ruled Gaza and challenge its de facto authority on the ground.
The relationship between Hamas as a government and as a resistance movement with the other Islamic Salafi groups here in Gaza can be described in two different ways. At one point, the relationship was cooperative and in terms of coordination, but at other points, like now, it has been a very competitive relationship in which the Salafi groups are trying to compete and they are trying to challenge Hamas authority in the Gaza Strip. But it seems to me that after the latest Israeli aggression in Gaza, that there is some kind of understanding between Hamas and these Salafi groups to abide by the Tahdi'ah, to abide by the ceasefire with Israel, so not to provoke Israel into a new aggression on the Gaza Strip.
The situation is generally stable, as all Palestinian factions and smaller groups, including Salafi jihadi groups, reached consensus to abide by the truce.
Hamas is in control of Gaza, and people can see that in reality there is no much activities by these groups, especially after what happened in after the Sinai attacks, were no clues about any participation from the people inside Gaza to the attacks.
Talks about jihadi groups in Gaza as an Israeli excuse to give Gaza a bad name. This topic was discussed among all Palestinian factions recently. There is an agreement among all factions to abide by the truce, which was declared after the Israeli 8-day war in Gaza last November. Israel has always given the impression that Sinai is a territory that is controlled by jihadi groups. Sinai is under Egypt's sovereign control.
During this press conference, panelists said that Gaza is part of the Palestinian national project and stability in the seaside territory is important for the stability of the whole region. This is while both rival factions, Hamas and Fatah, stress the need to have one authority in Gaza under the umbrella of the PLO and speed up the implementation of the national reconciliation in order to help Gazans stand on their feet and build their lives after years of siege, division, and two devastating wars.
What I understand is that we need one authority. We need Palestinian unified authority. It should be one weapon, one project. Everyone who wants to express about himself or his presence, it should be in a democratic way through the election box.
Gaza is part of Palestine, and there will not be a Palestinian state without Gaza. Therefore, we are serious about achieving national unity and reconciliation. And we need to reconstruct the PLO and its institutions. And until we achieve that, we will continue to rebuild Gaza.
There is no hope for Gaza except to be a part of the Palestinian state, and the reunity between Gaza and the West Bank should be achieved as soon as possible.
After the 8-day war, several prominent foreign ministers from the region visited Gaza and were received by the Hamas governing authorities, thus undermining the long-standing Israeli effort to isolate Hamas and exclude it from participation in diplomacy.
I believe that Hamas is capable of controlling Gaza and is aware about the activities of Salafi jihadi groups. I believe that these groups realize that they cannot compete with Hamas, and therefore they are not active anymore, and they now abide by the national consensus. Israel has always wanted to separate Gaza from the rest of occupied Palestinian territories and annex it to Egypt. This is part of the Israeli project. That's why it has closed all crossings with Gaza. Therefore, Egypt understood this game and will push both sides, Fatah and Hamas, to reconcile in order to prevent Israel from forcing Egypt to annex Gaza.
Unlike the ceasefire after Operation Cast Lead 4 years ago, the Gaza ceasefire agreement declared last November between Hamas and Israel under Egyptian mediation has a significance beyond ending 8 days of relentless Israeli attacks. It is just possible that it will be looked back upon as a turning point in the longest struggle between Israel and Palestine. Many observers believe that this time the ceasefire will hold, as both Israel and Hamas are interested in calm, as both claim they have achieved power of deterrence. Yusuf Al-Halo, reporting for The Real News, Gaza.